Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wildly Thriving podcast. Today we have a beautiful guest, Catarina or Evans. She is an integrative health coach and the founder of the Balanced Self, her integrative health coaching practice. She's known for her multidimensional approach to healing. Catarina helps conscious women unravel chronic gut issues, hormonal imbalances, detox challenges, and the emotional and energetic patterns that keep them stuck, all through a root cause, trauma informed, and terrain based work. She blends science and soul using tools like HTMA, energy testing, mineral balancing, and somatic practices to guide clients back to deep self trust and to be their own best self healer. Welcome, Katarina. Yay! That was a wonderful intro for you.
That
I'm like
sounded
very impressed.
beautiful. It's like, ah, it's like you're speaking French.
It was. Okay, so I always like to start off with learning a little bit more about you and your personal journey because I feel like all of the healers that are in these kinds of spaces have struggled themselves. So tell us a little bit more about your, whatever conditions maybe you overcame and what you used to get to this point. What made you become a healer?
For sure. So I love that you say that because a lot of us that have these health coaching practices and we started ourselves for these businesses, like we created it from our own like life experience that we went through. And that's what makes this work even powerful. So for me, I kind of started out always in athletics. Like I was a sports girl. I was good at sports. And that's kind of where I feel like I learned my value. It's like I learned people paid attention to sports and I was a really good athlete. And then being in sports and athletics kind of turned me on, obviously, to caring about my performance. So I can think back to even high school. I would literally tell people because the drinking starts in high school. Like, let's be honest, like those parties start then. And I remember telling people like, "Oh, I'm not drinking because I have a track meet." So like, I was a track girl, a volleyball girl, and so even in high school, I was already like conscious of alcohol is a toxin, it's a poison, it's going to slow me down, it's going to make me sluggish and I want to be like my best. I want to be my most optimal self for performance at that time. But so that's kind of where my journey started was sports, and then I went to college and I ran track in college, and I had this huge like for me, college was this like glow up. Like I finally like understood that I was somebody. I say that I'm special, but like I believe that I like have a special gift and purpose in this world, and so that's what college was for me. And I had this phenomenal college athletic career and then I graduated college and I was like, what else can I get into? And I decided to step into bodybuilding. And I think that's where we resonate as bodybuilding. So, similar story over here. Got into bodybuilding and I did that for 5 years. And it was at like the fifth year in 2020. So now that's 5 years ago. I stepped off the Arnold stage for the last time and I was like, you know what? I'm not even happy. Like, I just was on the Arnold stage. Like, granted, I didn't place like top five. I wasn't a pro or anything, but like, I was on the Arnold stage and I at least was in the top 15. Okay, that's a big deal. And I just got off the stage though, but I didn't care. I just was unhappy. And from that moment, I kind of had the worst health crisis ever. I used to be the one that said, as a bodybuilder, I was like, oh, all these girls complaining about gut issues and hormone issues just didn't reverse properly. Like they just weren't consistent. Like they're making excuses. And then it happened to me. So I could like slap myself in the face for what I thought back then before. Sometimes you don't know until you experience something and you're like, whoa, shit, like this is actually real stuff. So yeah, I ended up I was working with a coach at the time. We were like looking into my blood work just to kind of see like where I was at. And there was obvious signs there from blood work with my thyroid, with my cortisol, my like zilch hormones. Like some people will have like high estrogen. At that point, nothing. I didn't have much estrogen, didn't have hardly any progesterone. I had just gotten off of birth control the year prior, still hadn't had a period. So it was like over a year of not having a period. Had a lot of things going on. I was literally peeing out my butt. I share a lot of examples and stories on my social media sites and content talking about how I shit my pants. Like I would literally shit my pants. No joke. There's one story I'll share this here. I was living with my boyfriend at the time And we had just got back from a trip, and I was filled up with a bunch of laxatives because I couldn't shit. And so
Mm.
then everything finally like was coming through. And I was on a morning walk. Like morning movement used to be my thing, like, fasted cardio. It's like morning movement, walk, walk, walk. And I couldn't make it back to the apartment in time. Like it hit me. So if anybody's dealt with like this type of urgency bowels, like it hit me. I couldn't get somewhere fast enough. And I literally shit like through like at the door, like stepping to the apartment door. It went through my shorts. It went down to like the apartment deck below me. It was so bad. I don't think anybody should admit this story on a platform, but like that I laughed about it, but like I was 26, 27 years old. Why am I shitting my pants still, right? Like, that's a problem. So, anyways, I had a lot of digestive issues, hormone issues, all that was starting to surface. And I could, like, ignore it and laugh about it for a while because the body weight wasn't really, like, bothering me. It wasn't at a point that was uncomfortable yet until it was. And I believe I gained about 40 pounds in 8 months from stage
Oh.
weight to hitting around 150. So I was 150 pounds. For some of you, that might not seem like anything, but for me, I'm like 5'3", 5'4", always been fairly lean. Bodybuilding kind of swung me too far on the pendulum of like lean to unhealthy, and it swung me the opposite way of we're going to gain a lot of weight, you're going to feel like shit, but like this, the place that I felt like the worst, I was fat to me. I was like chunky, had a super huge round face. I felt like my body just jiggled so much that wasn't moving at the pace that my body was. If anybody kind of can pick up what I'm saying there, that's just what it felt like to me. I'd walk up steps and it was like everything was jiggling, not moving like with my body. So this body that was the most uncomfortable, that I feel like I had a huge identity crisis with, was the body that actually led me to healing to where I'm at now, holistic health. And I went the conventional route, went to the endocrinologist. They were the fourth person in conventional health that I went to. And they were like, you look good to us. You look healthy. And so if you're really concerned, it sounds like weight is your biggest concern, which it was because that was the most like pressing because I could see it and I felt ugly too. They were like, well, you should just work out more and eat less. And it was that moment with the endocrinologist that I was like, fuck you, first of all, because that's what I've been doing the last 5 years. Bodybuilder, we're working out multiple times a day. And prior to that, I was a college athlete. Like, I was working out 3 times a day in college. So that's what I've been doing my whole life. Stop. It's like they didn't even listen to my story of where I was, what I'm experiencing, and my concerns. And they just went off of, well, your TSH is fine. So
Oh,
that's
isn't
my
that
story.
lovely? Isn't that lovely? Well, I'll make you not feel so bad because I remember one very indelible moment when I was in the Marine Corps. We were running a 3 mile thing for like our standards,
Yeah.
right? And right in the middle of it, I literally was having to shit myself. So I ran off into the
Mm-hmm.
Porta John, still completed my 3 mile.
Yeah.
But it was a very traumatic event. I remember being at a farmer's market one time with my boyfriend, and all of a sudden it just hits you. And if there's no bathroom, you're effed.
Uh-huh.
And I swear I felt so bad for whoever went into that Arby's restroom after. I was like, that was when my IBS was the literal worst. And like the urgency is so awful. It really limits you
For sure.
in your life and the things that you like to do because you're like, oh man, is there going to be a bathroom nearby? Do I really want to be hanging out with my boyfriend on this hike for 5 miles and,
Mm-hmm.
maybe or maybe not have to shit myself? So I totally relate to that. It's one of the most awful things to go through. And it's something that I hear constantly with females that go into the bodybuilding space. When you get to that point of being lean, expect problems. It's going to be very difficult to bounce back from that, especially if you're doing it year after year, back to back shows. There are some women that have very good resiliency and they are on all the right things and they're doing the labs consistently. But if you're not doing that, or if you have a lot of sensitivities, like maybe you don't process certain food compounds very well, maybe you have MTHFR mutation, you're going to have a harder time bouncing back and you're going to rebound very poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So been there, done that with you as well. So, um, Was there any diagnoses that you had, or was it just kind of like IBS symptoms that you had, right?
Yeah, I never got diagnosed with anything. It was more of just, it wasn't my normal. Like, it was very far past my normal. And so I was kind of wondering what is going on. The only thing that, I did get done that was like, what is going on here was they did a thyroid scan at one point. Because I initially, the third person in my journey was a sports physician. And I came to him with my thyroid concerns because at the time, through what I was studying myself, I just got hyper focused on like, it's my thyroid, which, when you take a holistic approach, you understand that it's not just your thyroid, like a lot of symptoms matched up to thyroid, but it wasn't just that. And so when I went to that doctor, he was like, well, let's do a scan of your thyroid and see what's going on with that. And they found nodules on my thyroid, but even with that, like lab value, that I then took to endocrinologists, they were like, well, we don't really know if you had nodules before this or if this is right now. So they were kind of like, we don't really know. Like, well, so what was the point in you getting a thyroid scan and like seeing nodules and then being like, well, we don't really know because it could have been there your whole life. We don't know.
It's so crazy. Sometimes the dead end answers that they give us, it's just so ridiculous. And anytime that you're having a thyroid issue, it's a downstream effect of something, a further upstream dysfunction going on. And usually it's a toxic exposure. You know what I mean? Like, we don't realize that even inhaling the phthalates from a Glade plugin can impact our
Mm,
thyroid greatly. Spraying perfumes right on our neck, like we're
yeah.
always taught to do, rub a little here, rub a little, and it's just riddled with phthalates. It's a hormone disruptor. And we have to pay attention to that. If we're having issues, we're having symptoms, it's the body screaming, hey, I'm not safe,
Yeah.
you know? So, what would be one thing, or like what would you say is like the number one root cause that you see in your clients that are struggling with thyroid issues or any type of dysfunction?
Yeah, so I always say that I don't believe there's ever just one root cause because you are multidimensional. So I typically see like three root causes that are kind of like at the bottom. And one of those is chronic stress and or trauma, toxic exposure or toxic overload, and the third one is mineral depletion. And from there, because your minerals are your spark plugs to life, and they essentially fill the gaps, they make us whole. They make us resilient. I mean, I like to use this example of I have crystals all around me, but like for my crystal people, crystals are minerals and they're whole and complete. And don't we use these crystals as energy protection? We do. It wards off evil if you want to be woo woo. But if we look at crystals, they protect us because they are whole and complete. They're full of minerals and it wards off, it protects our energy. And so your minerals, your status, the way that you hold on to minerals, how much you have, are you abundant in them, or are you leaky, changes how much energy that you have and where you don't have boundaries and where you're being susceptible to other people's energies or even the toxic energy, right? So those are like the three things that I see, and I see those through HTMAs. That's kind of like my big like pride and joy, honestly. Like the thing that I think separates me is looking into HTMAs, which are hair tissue mineral analysis, through a lens of psycho, neuro, and immunology lens, and from a trauma-informed approach too, because it connects physical issues to metaphysical issues, and that's, emotional, energetic, spiritual, whatever. So that's kind of what I see most as like root causes. But to your point about the thyroid, that's another thing that I say a lot is if you have a thyroid issue, you have a toxicity issue because your thyroid's like this like scanner. I feel like it's like, it's your thermostat for your body temps, but I see it as this like scanner in your body of like, oh, do we have a toxin here? What's our toxin load like? And it down regulates or up regulates depending on, if this is something super stimulatory or if we're going to kind of burn out state where we just kind of slow everything down because we don't have the capacity to move things through us or move those toxins through us.
Yeah, so I know we were talking a little bit before we began, but I want to learn more about the correlations that you were talking about between energy, maybe like beliefs or trauma, and how that relates to certain minerals in the body. Like, what have you noticed on your clients' lab markers?
Yeah, so HMAs are like super beautiful. Another way I like to describe them is a mirror into your psyche. And so, how often do we get labs? Like, if you're working with somebody, like, oh, we're getting labs and we're figuring out what's going on. How And like, how unique is it that you get to have a test that's number one, showing your physical state because it's a mineral, but also because it's an energy and we are an energetic body. This is showing us metaphysical issues too. So, something that I see a lot in minerals is I see a lot of burnout. And there's a couple different ways to see burnout in minerals, but there's like a double low pattern, there's a triple low, or there is a four low pattern. And essentially, those are based off of your macro minerals. So the most important minerals, just kind of like your macros, our macros most important is carbs, proteins, and fats. And for minerals, it's calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And so when we see a double burnout, when we see a triple or a four low, that's related to calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And so the more burned out you are, the more trauma patterns that we see, and the more that trauma and chronic stress is playing a huge factor in your chronic health issues and your depletion. And also, something interesting to note is, parasites are very connected with having a four low pattern. So when I typically see four low patterns, essentially that like life death state, like that's a very huge burnout state. Parasites are always there too. So that's kind of what I see the most often is a slow oxidizer and having, multiple forms of burnout of those macro minerals, so to speak.
Gotcha. Okay. And I don't know exactly how you do your practice. I don't know if you do just individual lab testing or if you do multiple at once, but I never like to just do one because you make the clinical correlations between both. So, like you said, with your HTMA, you said, oh, I have a four low. Let's run a GI map or some other kind of stool testing that you might select. There's so many different testings that you could do. I prefer the GI map because it shows so many different inflammatory markers, parasites, viruses, bacteria, even commensal and beneficial bacteria. It'll show you the values there. So I like to compare both. So you see that four low, okay, well, what parasites are here? Sometimes parasites don't show up on the stool testing, which is unfortunate because it's they cloak themselves, they hide in all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of tissues. There's even ones that can spirochete into the bones. So it won't always show up, but we can also compare different inflammatory markers to kind of prove that, like, okay, maybe this parasite didn't show up, but your steatocrit is really crazy or your beta glucuronidase is really high. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see. So do you have like a specific panel that you run like alongside your HTMA or do you just do the HTMA?
That's a really good question. I might be a unicorn here, but I don't typically run multiple tests at the same time. Like, I like to start out with HTMAs, but depending on where somebody is at in their health journey, right? If foundations aren't really being met, it's like, well, what's the point in doing something right now when we know we have all these areas to address just to build some foundation to get things moving into place? So, I like to tell people, like, I don't pull labs right off the bat, and I also don't require labs in order to work with me. However, I do love the HMA. So when I get a point in someone's journey, it's like, I want to do this one. In terms of gut health too, I have my own little like gut health assessment without doing a GI map because again, I want to work with where people are at in their healing journeys and is this test, if I'm choosing to do a test with a client, is this test going to tell us more that we don't already know right now by maybe blood work, by maybe their previous labs that they had within a recent time frame, by their biofeedback and what their body's communicating to us and what we already know? Or is this lab going to change the plan or the approach that we have right now? And if we were to get a lab and it's like, well, I don't really know if it would change what we're doing, then I really don't find it valuable. But that's kind of how I like to do things. I kind of throw things in when it's appropriate for clients or not. But it is really interesting to see when you do an HTMA paired with a blood lab. I think those are two really good together because blood's showing us what is happening, at this time right now. It's like timestamp. This is what's going on right now. This is what's free floating around. And then an HTMA is kind of like this, like, I think of it as a precursor. So sometimes it shows us things before it shows up in blood. And this is not through a diagnostic lens. So I just want to make that clear. We're not looking at HTMA and finding something to like, oh, you have IBS. Like, that's not my scope. That's not my place. This is more of an informational and educational experience or a look into your health at the cellular level. And then again, with blood labs, we can put those two together and see, okay, we had some things popping off here for thyroid. This is kind of showing us things about your thyroid. What does your lab show? Or in HTMA, we could look into, it shows about your blood sugar. Is the blood sugar super, super high? Is it really unregulated? We can kind of see if blood sugar issues from HTMA are also replicated in blood work too, with glucose, A1C, and insulin too. So I like to pair those together because it's interesting, but again, it's not always needed.
Yeah, yeah. So that leads me to ask, like, is there a specific mineral, like say, or like a toxin like mercury or cadmium that you see that connects to a belief system, like a specific trauma? Is there anything like that, or what have you noticed?
Yeah, so a specific toxin won't show like this is your trauma because that's really hard to say. And again, from a trauma informed lens, is we don't want to ever say like, hey, you have trauma because that's not our place to say because trauma is how you perceive something in your life at that point in time. But what you do see with a bunch of like toxins, so if we do have some heavy metals accumulating, if we have more than a few, we can see that either A, you might be detoxing them, because sometimes things show up in your HTMA and it's like you're actually detoxing them. Others are related to exposure. So you're moving them through, but this is an exposure for you right now. So that's a concern. And most times it always goes back to water. So the water people are drinking and that's local to them or where they're sourcing it from. It's always a huge player with heavy metals. But then the other thing that we can see with no metals showing up. So if you have, they're like in the labs that I do, they're like these like arrows, and it basically doesn't show any heavy metals popping up. That's a concern too, because we should be excreting metals. Like that is something we should be able to do and be detoxing. So when you're not, and there's a bunch of heavy metals not showing up, that's a huge sign that you're having a poor elimination and they're actually being stored in your tissues because they're not showing up. So they're being kind of held in those fattier areas of your body. Think of brain. So a lot of heavy metals like aluminum is very closely correlated with the brain and having brain fog and poor memory and things like that. So those things that we can see, with aluminum being more related to maybe something you could be experiencing and what your experience is like in terms of memory. But in cognition. But yeah, those are, and poor elimination patterns are a sign that there's a lot of stored stress, we could say, or like stored emotions. And usually when I'm working through this lab review with my clients and we pull up these things and we go through them, I'm like, does this resonate with you? And they're like, mm-hmm. I tend to be somebody that doesn't like to say what I'm feeling. I tend to keep things in. I just want to, not rock the boat. I don't want to break the peace or whatever. Like I always just want to like be chill. It's like, yeah, well, this is showing up in your metaphysical patterns too. So how does that make you feel to see that your emotions and the way you process emotions or don't is impacting your health?
Yeah, yeah, it's multifaceted, and that's why our technique, our methodology is so needed because there's so many people that are left behind because there's nobody there to do that investigative work. There's so many people that they have kids, they work a 9 to 5, and it's not like you can't find the time for that self-care, but if you don't have like a strong interest in learning about health and researching and doing all this stuff, then you are going to be so confused because there's so much conflicting information out there. You go online and you type in, are plants healthy? You're going to see an article that a vegan wrote saying it's so good. And then the next person, the next one down is going to say, no, carnivore is the way to go. So it's very difficult to sit through that kind of information because there's so many conflicting opinions out there. But something that you mentioned about the HTMA, it made me think about how with like the storing of the metals in the
Mm,
brain of like people that eat a lot of like preserved foods, maybe they're consuming a lot of like polysorbate 80, something like that is capable of crossing the blood brain barrier. It's essentially shuttling those metals into the brain tissue or into the visceral fat. So that's something to think about as well. It's like you could be eating pretty good, but if you are, even like a pickle that has like probably sorbate 80 in it as the preservative with all these dyes, you don't have no idea where that toxin is actually going. You know what I mean? It's going
hmm
to your liver and then it's going somewhere else that you don't want it, and that could be the source of your brain fog or your memory issues, or it could be setting you up for things like dementia and whatnot. A life lived consuming all of these toxins that have the ability to basically open up those barriers within the brain, that is what's causing the neurodegeneration,
for sure.
so it's, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you see that commonly. I don't know if you work with people with like dementia or anything like that, but
No, not specifically, but a lot of, memory issues or even just like headaches or confusion, walking into the room and you're forgetting it and like forgetting what you went into there for. And maybe sure that happens a little bit, but like when that's very frequent and you're starting to be like, this is happening to me a lot, like that's something to really pay attention to. But you're absolutely right on all that with, I think the biggest issue is there's going to be toxins everywhere. And the truth is, we are in the most disgustingly toxic environment we've ever been in. It infuriates me
Mhm.
because I feel like such a small piece of like how like I wish we could change all this, and like I'm a contributor as well. Like I buy plastic clothing at times. Like I have a couch that I'm sure is radiating off ZO or VOCs. So it's just so much around us that I think the bigger problems are is like again that mineral depletion, because where minerals aren't, toxins go into their place. And so again, like everyone wants to be low toxin, like that's actually very helpful and very, very good. But don't forget that we need that mineral, we need nourishment to crowd out those toxins. And then more importantly is like since we have so many toxins around, do we have our drainage capacities open, our detox pathways open to continue to move these through us? So yes, we can have these exposures here and there, but it doesn't derail us and we don't store it, we don't hold on to it. We move it through our bodies and we carry on like our vibrant, high vibe cells. So those are the important parts that I see, because you could, back to your information overload and just like so much information out there is like, I just heard that Mountain Valley is like found four times or 40 times the arsenic or something. And I'm like, dude, I get that delivered to my house. Like, there's just so many things, even as somebody that's in this space, and I'm sure you feel this too, it's like there's always something coming up that, oh, well, this fountain has lead and this is arsenic. Well, this is actually has toxins. They tested this and they found this. It's like, at some point, you could start to feel like there's nothing I can like do that are supposedly good for me. And that's where I think grounding into your body and like what is for me right now, like what's the most beneficial for me right now, and like leaving the fucking rest out, because it will consume you the more that you try to be like up with all the research, just like focus on yourself, remineralize, keep your body open to move things through, and let the rest go. Like at some point, it can just be too much, and that is a weight on you of trying to be perfect, right? It's like, I need to be low toxic all possible, and you try to be perfect, and that, continues to um, keep your health issues coming because you're in this like perfectionism state.
100%, 100%. I had so many thoughts there that just popped up. Like the premise, or not the premise, the principles that I teach in my practice are there's a process that you have to follow to gain a high quality of life. Number
Mm-hmm.
one is remove. So remove the toxins, remove the toxic people to the best of your ability. You're never going to
Right.
be able to reach zero, right? You're going to have challenges, you're going to have stressors in your life. Then you replace. So that would be the remineralization. So how can we incorporate more balanced foods, eating organic, eating foods that are, um, you know, non-existent with the pesticides? That's the best thing that
Yeah.
we can do there, because pesticides bind to minerals. Like you were saying earlier, the toxins like mercury will replace magnesium on the cell receptor site. So you have to understand that, like, if we have dental fillings in our mouth, we're constantly going to be low in specific minerals that are actually beneficial to us, and it'll start to corrode the cells, inflame the cells, and that's when we dispose or predispose ourselves to like things like cancer and cell mutation. So we remove and reduce the amount of the toxic load. So we have a bucket, a toxic bucket, and only so much can fit into that bucket. Everything that we use, from our self-care, shampoo, the lotions, the beverages we drink, the air that we're breathing, if we're living in a moldy home, that's adding to our toxic bucket. And if we're eating a low nutrient dense diet, then we're going even lower, because we're not able to compete with that. So we're getting all the drops in the bucket out and then filling them with nutrient dense foods, organic foods, taking supplements that have humic and fulvic acid, ionic minerals, shilajit. There's so many things that you could do, and there's so many different ways to skin a cat. So
Oh, I hate that.
remove. Oh, I know, right?
That saying makes me sad.
Oh, do
Just
you have a
kidding.
cat? Is
Yeah,
that
I
why?
have. I have two. But carry on.
No, no, we would never actually skin the cat. We would never actually skin the cat.
It's not real, guys.
Uh,
It's not real.
It's not real. Hold your ears, hold
No.
your ears. But then we repopulate. Like if we had, some issues with the gut. A lot of times when we're exposed to a lot of toxins, then our beneficial bacteria take a strong hit. So that's why I like to do the GI map and see, okay, where is our beneficial bacteria? What probiotics would actually be beneficial for you? Because not all probiotics are made the same. And
Mm-hmm.
and some people that are dealing with things like SIBO or these specific gastrointestinal issues, not all probiotics are actually going to benefit them. They could cause them to get worse. So you want to be very
1,000%.
careful. Yeah, you want to be very careful with that. So I had a question. Like, what would be what is like the last element to your client's healing journey? Like, what is the toughest thing for you to get them to actually heal?
Mm.
I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, I guess I would say the thing that can be the biggest roadblock, maybe that's how I can best answer this question, is the thing that can be the biggest roadblock in some clients' journeys is that we sometimes have this preconceived, like, it should take this long and it should look this way in this amount of time, and then I go, and then I'm done, and then I'm healed. And I don't really feel like we're completely healed. I think healing looks different through different seasons and phases of life. Like, I I don't expect to be completely healed. I want my body to always communicate to me things that it needs so that I can listen to it and be able to reroute and, support it in that way. But I think when people get stuck in these like, oh, well, in 3 months, I'm supposed to lose this amount of weight. And it's like, who said? Like, where did you get that information that you believe that that's the course your body is going to take and the time that it's going to take? And this is going to probably piss a lot of people off, but this goes back to like, what do you see most common in your practice is I'm seeing slow oxidizers, which can mean you have a slow metabolism, which means your journey and your body is going to go at a much slower pace than somebody else. Like me right now in my journey, I went from a slow oxidizer to a fast oxidizer. So hence the bowel changes have changed too. Like when you're a slow oxidizer, you are more constipated. Bowels are a little bit more slow. When you're a fast oxidizer, you're kind of having more fast, rapid, more liquidy states. And that can also pinpoint to toxicities too. But back to the point of you can only work at the pace your body's going to go, and nobody is God. Nobody can tell you exactly like you're going to have all these issues resolved in this time frame and make that promise to you. So I think what gets people hung up the most is this expectation that came from where. I think maybe that needs to be the question you ask yourself is, where did I believe it would take this length? Who did I hear that from? And does that apply to my life? Because we can look at somebody and say, well, you had, let's say, IBS and you healed your IBS and or at least, came to no issues present, like you're completely balanced, you go through your day to day without it impacting your livelihood. You resolved in this time frame and your approach looked like this. I could have the same thing. I could have IBS, and my approach and my healing journey could look completely different because we are two different people who have very different histories. We have very different metabolic profiles. And even something I like to consider is how you came into the world can sometimes tell how resilient you are or not. So did you come into the world full of minerals and your mama, pushed tons of minerals to you and you came into life in a more resilient state versus maybe I didn't. You came into life very, minerally robust and resilient, and I didn't. I was, depleted, whatever. It was passed down to me. Our journeys are going to look completely different because we have so much differences in life and life situations. Am I a mom that I do have to caretake. I do have to, tend to people, which I'm not, just giving an example. But I think we forget all those nuances in each of our own individual lives, and we look to somebody else and be like, well, you went through there, so I should be at the same pace. And it's like, where do you feel like that's true for you? Why do you feel like that's supposed to be written in your journey?
Totally, totally. That's a struggle that I have with clients too, is the impatience. Like I, for instance, have a 22-year-old client who got exposed to mold over the course of years and lost her cycle for 2 years, and it hasn't come
Mm,
back yet. And it's getting them to actually face the reality of it. It's like, okay, you are 22, you have all of your reproductive organs, and we've been on this program for 8 weeks.
mm,
That's it. That's the all of the concerted effort that you put in so far. And it's like we like to, discourage ourselves by looking outward and comparing our journey to other people. She's like, looking at her her sister-in-law, and she's saying, well, she got pregnant and I can't help but feel jealous and, wonder if, if that's
mm,
ever going to be me. And it's like, okay, what reality check can we give you right now? Like I gave her like a self-concept worksheet to like fully understand these are the questions that you really truly need to ask yourself to realize, okay, then I need to slow it down a little bit. Maybe I am being a little bit
Mm-hmm.
impatient. Maybe I'm not putting a lot of faith into this. Maybe I'm actually blocking my blessings
Mm-hmm.
by thinking and expressing to the universe that I have a lack. That is huge for people, you know? If I constantly worry and I doubt that this is ever going to happen to me, that's saying to the universe that,
I don't know.
I don't trust it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to come.
Yeah.
But when you're faced with the reality and you're seeing that, oh, actually when I started, I could barely make it through my day. I had so much fatigue. I had so much brain fog. I like could not get to work. I couldn't get out of bed. I was so anxious. And now you're at this place 8 weeks later where your energy is good. You make it throughout the whole day. You're having good workouts, and you're feeling so much better. Like we tend to forget where we actually started,
Yeah.
and that's why I like to do the progress tracking so that they can see, like, oh, not too long ago, I was feeling really bad. I
Yeah.
was not in a good place. So you have to remind your clients that, hey, this is the process. It's not going to be the same for everybody. And it might look different for you. It might take you a little bit longer. Like you said with the slow oxidizer. I do a type of testing. It's like a screening, like a questionnaire where they figure out what their metabolic typing is and they
Yeah.
follow a specific diet. There's certain foods that are actually going to be more beneficial to a slow oxidizer versus a fast oxidizer, like the purines and fat or in proteins or whatever can be more beneficial for like a slow oxidizer like myself.
Mm.
Sometimes dairy can have you holding on to more weight in your hips and your love handles for a slow oxidizer. So sometimes you might want to like cut that back a little bit. It really is it's dose dependent and really depends on your own bio individual needs, like where your ancestors um, evolved, what regions they grew up in, what foods they had access to, that matters. You know what I mean? Because it gets encoded into our DNA, like what we actually thrive off of. That's why some people
Yeah.
can do okay on a vegan diet. Some people can do okay on a carnivore diet and vice versa. They end up feeling horrific. So then they have these very strong opinions that, oh, I tried the carnivore diet and it ruined my health. Oh, I tried the vegan diet, it ruined my health. Well, you probably were just trying to copy somebody else off of the internet and not really listening to your own
Mm-hmm.
body and the messages that your body is communicating with you, you know?
Yeah. That's the biggest thing to just run home with this in any conversation about your health is just what is your body saying? What does your body need? And crowd out the noise from other people. And I think that's where this works together when you as a coach can bring this into it of like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, but like what do you think? Like bringing them back into their own journey of like, what do you think about this? Is anybody asking you what you think? Like when you go to your conventional doctors and they're like, all right, you need to do this and I'm going to write a script for this, like are they asking you, what do you feel you need? What do you feel is missing in your journey? What do you feel is true for you? And that can be a huge game changer and it puts your client or your patient back into the seat of their own healing journey because that's who it is all along anyways. I'm not their healer, I'm not their god, like I'm not going to like fix them. I'm just a guide and my job is to give a roadmap and let them lead the way. But if you don't listen to your intuition, you don't trust yourself and you're not building that muscle just like any other muscle in your body, you're going to fall victim to many, many things. And if you have the patience, this goes back to patience. If you want to be that like guinea pig that wants to try everything out because you're like, ooh, I like, trying all these things for all these people. Well, if you don't have the patience to be like seeing it through, or if you expect a result out of it, that's going to set you up for failure. But if you're the type that can be like, I like to try things and I don't hold an attachment to the outcome, I just like to see how it works for me and I'm very neutral about it, then that's for you. But most people don't have that headspace. They're very driven,
Mhm.
like, I need progress, I need something right now. And damn, isn't that just like how our whole society, I feel like, is set up? Is like Amazon Prime can be, I order it right now on this podcast. I order something right now and it's at my door at the end of this. It's like our society is forcing us into like this expectation of right here, right now. And it's sad. And then we're expecting the same as that our body operates at the same pace of like technology. We haven't evolved
Mhm.
from our bodies from thousands of years ago. We still have the same DNA. It's still at the same pace as it was back then, and we're forcing it into this fast-paced society, expecting quick changes. Like, do you forget what you're not a robot? So that's yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
backing up
That's
there.
my biggest, yeah, that's my biggest stink about the conventional medicine space is it's so disempowering. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it really takes away our agency and it makes us question our intuition. You know what I mean? You come into the office, you have all of these symptoms, you feel horrible, and then you get gaslit and disregarded and made to, feel like, oh, you just have anxiety,
Yeah.
and you get labeled something, get a diagnosis, or maybe you don't get a diagnosis at all, and you're sent home with, you're a little crazy because you think that you're this sick person, but your labs are normal. You
Mm-hmm.
must just be stupid and you need to stop Googling, like that's how
Mm-hmm.
they make you feel. And it's horrific. And like how they handle people that are actually in the disease state, okay, yeah, let's fill them with fear. You have a 20% chance of living, you're in stage
Mm-hmm.
4 cancer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like fix the delivery here, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because a lot of the times cancer, even if we're in stage 4, it's a very fixable issue and nobody's chemo deficient. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's a dysregulated nervous system that is, exacerbating the cancer. It's a toxin issue. And we're not giving any education on those things for these people that, really, really need that type of guidance. And all they're given is, fear,
Yeah.
and they're giving a very like hardcore, 6 months to live. Sorry, type of
I
thing. And then
wonder,
they're like, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if anybody, wants to comment, let us know. But if you ever did have a cancer diagnosis, has your doctor ever ran a total toxin panel? Like
Hmm.
even looked
They
into
never do.
toxins? It's like what? I don't know. I really sat with like, what if I'm this integrative health coach and I care about my health and I know all these things, and what if I still end up with something like cancer? Like, I don't know if you've thought of that yourself. Like, what if I do all these
Hmm.
things and I preach all these things and this is my message to the world and I still end up with it? What are your thoughts? And maybe me asking you questions like, what are your thoughts on like this being your sole contract or what you came here to serve and what you came to experience? Because I've wrestled with that too. It's like I can do all the things, and like, what if I still get something? It's like, can I still accept myself and see myself as like valuable, even if I did all these things and it didn't work out? Could I still love myself and appreciate
Yeah.
myself?
Yeah, I ponder that a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm like, especially since like majority of my life has been so dysregulated and
Mm,
I still have, I have to challenge all of these thoughts, when somebody asks me to, last minute go out for their birthday or something. And maybe I work 12-hour days Monday through Friday and I was just so looking forward to having that day off and not talking to anybody and being with myself. I will automatically start to compromise. And it's just
mm,
like, why do I always abandon myself? And it's something that I have to diligently work on. And it's like,
yeah.
it's this thing where you're never fully healed. As soon as you think you're
Mm-hmm.
healed, you're not. There's
Something
another
else comes
level.
up. Yeah. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to dive into this. I need to sit with this one. Yeah.
Oh, it's so tough. And yeah, like I've wrestled with that before too. I'm like, what if I do develop cancer later on? Like, what am I gonna do? And honestly, like I kind of already have this pre-plan. I'm just gonna
Same.
go to like a freaking retreat and I'm gonna do this meditation and I'm gonna be with myself and I'm gonna try to get the answer from God directly. You know what I mean? I'm really going to sit with it and
Yeah,
just do all the research and figure out, okay, what am I missing, and do all the functional labs. And there's a solution to it if you get the right data and you get the right messages from your higher self consciousness source, whatever you want to call it. There is an answer out there. You just have to look for it and you have to remove the blockages, right? Because a lot of our thought patterns and our beliefs will block the message that is trying to
mm-hmm.
be sent to us. And we call
Mm,
out in desperation, we send out these prayers, but then we ignore the message when it comes, because it comes in the form of what? Discipline, changes that we don't want to make, discomfort,
yeah.
you know so it's a process, and nobody's immune to disease. Nobody's immune to, like somebody could rear end you and put you
Mm-hmm.
into a coma and break your neck. There's so many things that can happen in life, and we have to figure out how we can reframe those things that are happening to us and see how they're happening for us, and what value we can extract from that, even though it's so painful and so hard
For
to
sure.
to get through.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
same. I've thought about it and I was like, all right, my first route would be like root cause, like let me see what's kind of going underneath the surface. And conventional approaches to cancer would be my last resort. But like do a lot of sitting, with what is this teaching me? What is this here to serve and let me know of or remind me of maybe about myself that I abandoned or that I haven't wanted to look at because we're human and we tend to like just want to operate out of ego. And so, yeah, I was reading this book. I don't know if you've heard of it by Chopra. I always forget his
Oprah.
last name. Yeah, he has a book, Quantum Healing, and he talks about this woman in his practice that had cancer. And like miraculous healing can happen, and it did happen for her. And it was just through like meditations and nourishing herself. And quantum physics teaches us that you can quantum leap, you can have spontaneous healing because everything already exists for you right now. And this like shit blows my mind, but like I think about this often, in these cases is everything I want already exists right now. It's already here for me. I get to choose it and I get to call it in by thinking about it and bringing consciousness into it and pulling it into like my cells. So you think of quantum physics, it's like there's this whole outer universe or whatever. Everything already exists, maybe even in a different like lifetime or whatever, but I can like pull this into my current experience right now through conscious awareness. It's like, why do you see a car that you think about? It's like, well, you thought about it, your consciousness pulled it in, and now it's into your reality, your current experience. So I think of that a lot. And truthfully, with like cancer, I've had a lot of death in my life, like family. I've almost lost all of my aunts at this point, and I'm only 32. So I've really sat in the last few months about like end of life and how I would approach that and what I think about it now, because learning quantum physics has truly changed my comfort with death as like I don't end. Like there's no end to me. Like even we say like I love you, like I don't know, there's like wedding vows that say like till death do us part. And I'm like, no. Like death does not part who I'm in love with. Like me and my husband, I'm going to love him for eternity. My soul will always know him. It'll always recognize him and his energy. And I go on. I go on. Maybe in a different form, maybe in a different realm, but like that to me, there's science to back this like woo woo and spirituality, and that's safe for me to like approach death of like it's not this like end where like the screen goes out, the lights go out, and it's like boom, done. Like there's a consciousness that goes on because it's all a universal consciousness too. So
Yeah, yeah. And like people have such a resistance to that based on their conditioning, like there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know where we go, or they really
mm-hmm.
truly fear death. And I think, if people are really struggling with that, or maybe they've lost somebody and they're really struggling to process that grief, I highly recommend the book. It's called Life After Death by
Mm.
Dolores Cannon. And she is
Is she the older
so,
woman? She's the older one
yes,
from like I don't know, is it
you need
90s
to
or
read that book. Yes,
okay? Because I see her
you've
on
got to read
YouTube
it.
all the time, and I'm like, she is transmuting stuff. Like
She changed my life.
she knows stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, she
Okay.
changed my life. She does she had a hypnosis technique that she developed herself, and I think she was just, I don't want to call her like a chosen one, right? But she was gifted in her
Yeah.
ability
A
to put
gift.
people into this state. Yeah. And she was able to channel other like beings, energies, aliens, people that they were in their past life, even
Mm.
an individual that was a spiritual knowledge protector in the time of Jesus.
Oof.
So, like, she got so much information, Nostradamus, she has a lot of conversations with him. She decoded a lot of his philosophies, people that they didn't understand what it meant. She literally tapped in and like talked to that
Oh my
person
gosh, she's
that they
wise.
were. It's so incredible, and
Okay.
that book really changed my perspective on death. And it's actually a beautiful thing, like
Mm-hmm.
this earth that we're on. It's so dense, it's so painful, we're
Yeah.
feeling every emotion, and that's the point, because we
Mm-hmm.
we come here. I believe, this is my personal belief, that we choose our path, and there's people that we choose that we're going to meet up with along the path, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why we have those synchronicities, or the deja vu or whatever. It's falling into alignment with
Yeah.
what we were planning on, experiencing. And the whole point is to learn and to basically attain higher levels of consciousness and get to those upper levels of consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible once you actually become cognizant of our purpose here, because I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people they don't really know, and that can cause a lot of fear and a lot of hurt and pain, because it feels
Yeah.
like life is just happening to you. feels like you're suffering, especially if you've been through a lot of trauma, like sexual
Yeah.
assaults or, abuse. It feels like, God is just out to get you. And
You're
that's just
right.
not the reality. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's so, you hit the nail on the head there about like, and I think Dolores even says this is what I heard from her. She said that the human experience is the hardest experience. Like to be here on Earth is like the hardest mission because we have to feel the whole spectrum. And you have all these bad things happen to you. And I remember growing up and, I had like my come to Jesus moment, like my come to God moment, actually. I'm not sure yet where I align with like Jesus and Trinity and all that. I'm just like still sorting out my spirituality there. But I remember like people would say like, "Oh, God, takes the good ones away," and it's like, "But what does that mean? Like, what? So am I not good because I'm still here, or am I good because I'm here? Like, what?" And yeah, what you said about like, why does God hurt me? Why does He always give these things to me? Why does these things happen to me? Imagine if that's how everything you look at in life is that God's actually just like mad at you. Like, no, God is like all light. Like, he's not trying to like throw shit at you. Like, but this is your experience that you chose, your soul chose to come here and build upon to, like you said, to expand, to, benefit the greater of the collective, that you could have this experience and you have this shift. And so I totally align with that. It's like, what makes the person that we're attracted to? Like, how are we, like my husband, like when I first met him, like I knew like, ooh, this is somebody for me. Like there's a connection here and it was undeniable. And it was crazy that it was undeniable because for so long I was like, I don't like anybody. Like, good luck, guys, because you can try to like date me, but like I'm gonna have my first date with you and be like, I don't like you. And so, what makes it about those people that we meet in our life that we connect with that are like aligned, they resonate with us? Like, what makes our souls be like, whoa, we fit, like we make sense, like even your best friends, like how does that happen? And I think you hit it there. I'm like, we're meant to meet these people, and the people that are meant for you, you connect with, and there's something there that pulls you to them. It's like, you're for me right here, right now. And maybe some people are just there for a season, not your whole life, and that's okay too. So I love that this conversation went this way.
Yeah, yeah. We can dive deeper into that on a different day because there's so much
so,
to talk about.
so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's something that you shouldn't ignore either, like you should, if you have a lot of fears and you're being led by fear, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That is you setting yourself up for a disease state. When we lead with fear and we sit with shame, guilt, fear, worry, those are negative emotions that harm our physiology. When we store those negative emotions in our bodies, anger, expect a liver problem. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to have issues if you don't handle those negative emotions properly. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to ask one more question before we wrap it up here. What is one health ideology that you were like fully gung ho on board with, but you no longer believe in or you became disillusioned about? It's a little
Oh,
tricky
let me see.
question.
I'm like,
For me, it was raw veganism.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What have I? I probably don't have something groundbreaking right now because I'm just throwing this one out there. But like macros for me, I thought it was the whole world. I thought that's how I coach people. It's like how like we know their nutrition. And something you said earlier in this conversation was like, what, like you could eat vegan and that's not like wired from your ancestry. Like that's not where you're from. It's not encoding your DNA. So I've changed my mind so much about macros, maybe because my own experience of like I believed it to be the like king of, well, what's your nutrition like? Well, what's your macros like? And now it's like, no, 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 no. What colors are on your plate? How do you feel after your meal? Are you sleepy? Did you feel content? Did you not feel content? How much hungry were you after that meal? Like, there's so many other questions that I ask about, rather than like, well, what were your macros? Because man, when I lived by if it fit your macros, I was fitting tons of shit in there. Like, if you were in the bodybuilding era, you might have done this too, like Quest bars and just like filling up with like high protein
Um,
things because protein's good for you. It gives me more protein macros. Like, there was so much more conversation, so much more around nutrition and macros. And if I'm going to say something really bold, I think if macros is the only way that you know how to help somebody with nutrition, you're not actually helping them. And that's where I was for so
exactly.
long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then the whole calories in, calories out thing too. And like that's something
Hmm.
that I've noticed in my practice. Like I work with people that have, mystery illnesses, that have chronic
Hmm.
cases, resistant weight loss. You tell a person that they just need to follow their macros and eat less and move more, they're going to be so offended because they're already trying it. You
They're
know what I
doing it.
mean?
They've
There's
been doing
something
it.
else at play. Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
I was writing a document about the 20 different limitations to fat loss that aren't calories in, calories out. It has nothing to do with your macros. It has a lot to do with your evolutionary background. It has a lot to do with toxin exposure, chronically. Yeah, it's so big. It's so big, and like it's something that we don't, since it's not physical, we can't see it, and since it's so subtle, and it's not like all of a sudden one day, we get exposed to mercury and then we're like on a deathbed. It's a slow, steady, yeah, it's a slow, steady, hmm yeah, and then it builds and builds and builds, and then one day you're like, oh, I don't know if I can make it to work anymore. You know what I mean? So it's something that needs to be addressed, and I think all people should do an HTMA at some point in their life. And then, I recommend that my clients to do a GI map every year, because you don't know, you go to Thailand and then you get a bad bug in your stomach, you get food poisoning, and now we don't know what beneficial bacteria are wiped out. That's a thing. So we can't really control everything that we're exposed to on a regular basis, but we can control how we care for ourselves and the things that we are aware of. And it's important to do the lab testing and to reach out and get help when you need it. That's a big struggle that I've had in my life, with not asking for help, with trying to figure it out all on my own. Like we can't know everything, and if your career is a construction worker, how much time can you reasonably spend to researching and figuring out your health issue? Like it's not going to be an easy thing. So go to the professional, go to the person that spent, put the time and the sweat into figuring out, you know, the dysfunctions that maybe you're dealing with. Go to somebody that is, trained in the niche that you're trying to, overcome whatever health issue you're trying to overcome, and you'll get way faster results versus trying to figure it out on your own, trying the trial and error, going to the conventional doctor, getting medications. Like just go to the person that knows what they're doing. Trust me, like I'm learning from experience here. So, mhm. Yeah, focus on your path, focus on the qualities that you have, focus on your skills, go full bore into that, and then connect with other people that are, intelligent in areas that you aren't. I'm not gonna, I was a mechanic in my past, but I'm not gonna waste my time changing the oil in my car when that's not something that, number one, I even enjoy doing. It's not, yeah, I'm not acting on my values and my skills. So I'm just going to drop my car off at the mechanic, the guy that knows what he's doing, that can do it 3 times faster than me, that has all of the tools already. You know what I mean? Like make your life make sense, structure your environment and your day to day in a way that actually benefits you and brings you joy. Stop exhausting yourself trying to do it all yourself. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Well, that was an amazing little chat that we had. I can't wait to have you on again, and we can dive deeper into like a case study with the HTMA. I'd love to bring up some actual labs and have you like explain like what was going on with the individual and what you did to essentially bring them out of that, because some people really like to see that raw data and if it's possible for them because maybe they're struggling with the same thing. So really appreciate having you on, and I will link all of her socials and her special offers that she might have in the show notes in the caption. And yeah, I'm super excited to have you on again. It was really great chatting with you today. Amazing. All right, beautiful people. If this inspired you to reach out and get help, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Catalina. It doesn't matter if it's us or not. Whatever resonates with you, whoever aligns with you, reach out, get the help you need. There is hope for you. Even if you're, battling some kind of chronic illness, you're on several medications. We help those individuals get off medications and we help you find hope in your life and help you regain a higher quality of life. You don't have to suffer anymore. Okay. Have a great rest of your day and love you all. Bye.